Hi, welcome to lesson number 6 in the unit on Dvaravati civilization. In this lesson, we're going to learn about Dvaravati society. So, before I talk about Dvaravati society specifically, I want to talk about what a social hierarchy is, because we really need to understand the definition of social hierarchy if we're going to understand how Dvaravati society was structured. So, social hierarchy has to do with the way people are ranked in society. So you can imagine that the people with the most power will be at the top, and then people with the least power will be at the bottom. Okay, you can imagine a triangle or a pyramid, and at the top of the triangle, at the top of the pyramid, there's not much room, there's not much space. So if you can imagine the rich and powerful are at the top, and that there are not very many of them, and that the least powerful and the least rich are at the bottom. Of course, the base of a pyramid is quite large, so you can imagine that there would be quite a few people at the bottom of the social hierarchy, and therefore at the bottom of society. Okay. So just for an example here, you can take a look at this pyramid, which is supposed to represent ancient Egyptian society. Of course, the pharaoh or the Egyptian king would have been at the very top of the social hierarchy, and then the government officials would have been a step below him, followed by soldiers, scribes, who are essentially people who write things down, the merchants, craftsmen, peasants, and at the very bottom you've got the slaves. So there's a whole lot of slaves at the very bottom, okay, the lowest rung on this ladder, or at the very bottom of the pyramid. Okay, so that's how a social hierarchy works. Now, let's talk about this in terms of the Dvaravati society specifically. So, at the top of this triangle or this pyramid, which would represent the Dvaravati society, we would have, much like the Egyptian example, we'd have the king, okay, or one of a number of kings, I suppose, and the royal family as well. Just below the king and royal family would have been holy men, monks, possibly hermits or rusi, and they would have been toward the top because we know that Theravada Buddhism was very important to the Dvaravati people, so of course they would have had a lot of respect for monks and holy men. We talked about trade and commerce, and we know that that was also important. So merchants would have been somewhere near the top, probably just below the monks and holy men, followed likely by craftsmen, skilled craftsmen or artisans, people who made things, people who had skills and knowledge. Maybe they were carpenters, or possibly they made tools, blacksmiths, something like that. Farmers would have also been around this rung, as well as tradesmen. Okay, slaves, of course, would have been at the very bottom, and there were slaves throughout the Dvaravati society as well. Okay, so of course you've got the king at the very top, and much like the Egyptian example, you would have slaves at the very bottom. Okay, and that's it for this lesson, so thank you very much for listening.